Great. So, hi everybody. Good evening. Good afternoon to everyone who's joined here. I really appreciate everyone's time, and so lovely that you all can be with us uh, talking about ages of globalization from all over the globe, and also discussing about how I think this is such a great group, because then now we can really see how we can shape up this ages of globalization, which we call a movement, to understand the current challenges, sustainable challenges of the globe, and also to understand how history has shaped us, and what are some of those how have those events shaped our current being and our current challenges. So I think it's great that we can all share our experiences, we can keep it very candid, and we can really use this particular session to see how we can, in our next phase, this is the beta version, how in our next phase, which is going to, the alpha version will be launched in September, how we can shape the course in the most suitable way, in terms of what the learners need, in terms of what the teachers will need. I think this could be a very good use of our time in terms of our, in terms of shaping the course in the best possible way. Just a quick background, I'm Radhika Iyengar. I'm at the Center for Sustainable Development at Columbia University. We are one of the organizations that has a center that has Professor Sachs as our director, and he has, of course, driven this particular course with his thinking in terms of getting understanding a historical point of view of ages of globalization. It is coming from a book that he had written for undergrad students and master students, Ages of Globalization book. And then we discussed a lot in terms of how we can shape it for school students and teachers and other individuals who want to join, who want to learn about sustainability. And we are one of the partners, Center for Sustainable Development. My colleague Hain and I are partners with SDSN, Sustainable Development Solutions Network, where Katya sits, to form this particular course and create videos and create all the materials that you're seeing online. So having said that, we'll quickly go over the trailer for this course, so that we just get a refresher of what this course is all about. I know you all are very familiar with it. I'll share the link of the our website also soon. But let me know if you can see this. And here,
we're going on a journey
is it?
across place and time through the 7 ages of globalization. Why are we taking this journey together? Because we are in search of solutions for a world that is in challenge. From the savannas of Africa to the fertile delta of the Nile, from the rainforests of the Amazon to the Great Wall of China. Each age offers us wisdom and clues for our own survival and well-being. Informed by the past and learning the lessons of history, we can find the solutions to building the future we want. Our vision is a world of peace, with economic prosperity and with social justice. A world in which we are the stewards of the earth, so that we pass along our planet healthy and intact to future generations. The Ages of Globalization, a guide for global citizens.
Great. So that was a good refresher on the course itself. My colleague Hain has posted the Ages of Globalization website. It's open for all who wants to take this course: individuals, professors, university students, college students, as well as our high schoolers. Definitely feel free to use the link to share and to take the course, and tell us how if and there are all these different communities also. There is a there are a couple of communities. If you join the course, you will also be a part of the community where we have all these live events that Katya and our colleague Amanda hosts. They basically have all these, world leaders coming in and talking to students. Students take over this platform, and they have a very engaging interactive session from all over the globe. So again, that's something I think everyone can. Thank you, Katya, for sharing the link. And it's a live session, and so this course makes it a little bit different because it's not a static course. It actually speaks to a lot of different topics, current topics, but using history and economics and philosophy and all these other things as disciplines as the lens. So as we go forward, maybe I'll quickly, maybe I'll ask maybe Hain to start with so that we can see just some ideas on how the course is designed. Any perspective from your end in terms of how teachers could use it since you've developed the lesson plans, Hain? Any ideas from your side while you were developing it? What were some of the main ideas that you were going over while you were focusing on where this course can go? How can we make it more relevant? And this course is such a movement that you can take it in different and shape it in different forms. So maybe just getting your sense on some priorities from your end as you were designing the templates and lesson plans.
Sure. Thank you, Radhika. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here, and thank you for connecting over this really rich content and curriculum of Ages of Globalization. So one thing that Professor Sachs says in the trailer that I think is really core to the course is highlighting the challenges, but also focusing on the solutions for it, and really zoning in on how connected we are and highlighting that throughout. So in our lesson planning, we try to reflect that about the course. So it's definitely multidisciplinary, as you have seen. But we really wanted to bring all of that together to the central piece of connection. So you will see all the lesson plans. Each class really works toward building a community capstone project, which is a big part of the course. In terms of the individual lesson planning, there was a lot of content to work with because of the rich information that Professor Sachs has, not just information, but I would say insights that really help us to take a different perspective, a more global perspective, a more connected perspective. Um, so, and also kind of offering a different attitude of looking at the different issues. So you will see that if you go through the lesson plans, there is a section on knowledge, but also at the competency area, the learning outcomes are outlined so that it is not just about learning knowledge and attaining knowledge, but we base it on the UNESCO's learning outcomes of social behavioral competencies as well as social emotional competencies and behavioral competencies. Um, so throughout the lesson planning, you will see those three domains reflected as well. So information, how do we connect with others about this? How do I connect with my community? How do I take all of this knowledge and actually apply it to different sustainability issues and challenges I see in my environment? So I would say I want to keep it short, but I would say those are some of the key elements that we focused on while we were designing the lesson plans.
Thank you so much, Hain. And yes, I think taking UNESCO's outlines on key competencies as we are going through all these different lesson plans, I think was very key because of at least tapping into what students and what learners need to learn through the ages and looking at all the sustainable development problems and challenges and make them global citizens in a way because they are looking at all these historical dimensions of how their countries, politics and societies were shaped, I think is very, very key. So thank you for bringing that perspective up. I wanted to turn to Saira Sachin, if you can share your perspective, Saira, and also please give a background about yourself, where you are coming from, and what are some of your and what are your favorite things to do in general?
Um, so hi, my name is Sierra. I'm right now an eighth grader at the Pingree School, and I'm in my school's green group. And I like to compost at school because it's really fun, especially with my friends. I also like to swim, and I feel like in this course, it really helped me like understand like the background in history and today's world and how they are connected. Um, it helped me connect like ancient revolutions to today's systems. One thing that I really found interesting in my school, we were learning about the Industrial Revolution, and I knew how it shaped the world with factories and machines. But with this course, I learned how like the coal-powered industries didn't just boost Europe's economy, but also like kickstarted systems that still affect us today. And I could see links between early industrial practices and like the carbon emissions driving today's climate crisis. And it really helped me like learn how I see globalization. And it's not just something that was in the past, but something that's still evolving and that we're all living in.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your reflections, Sarah, and then also linking it to what you do at school and how it is informing your learning. I think that's really important, and that's also what we are looking forward to hearing from many teachers and students, to see how they are able to connect their school work with what this course is offering. So thank you so much for that reflection. With that, maybe I'm trying to see different perspectives. So I'm bringing in different people who are here, who have kind of shaped also this particular course. So I'll ask my colleague Katya to give a quick background about herself, and also, any reflections from your end on how do you see with your live sessions that you are doing, how do you see students' reaction? What are they looking forward towards learning? And then I'm sure you're familiar with so many other courses also. So how does this course fill in the gap, and maybe some future aspects from your end, Katya?
Yeah, thank you, Radhika. And hi, everybody. It's really great to be here. Thank you for carving out time on a Friday um, for this important discussion and this amazing course. Yeah, my name is Katja. I work for UNSDSN. I specifically work on Ages of Globalization, on contents, comms, and outreach. And then together with my colleague Amanda Abram, we developed the live sessions of Ages of Globalization, which we call UN at Your Doorstep. And I think when I'm thinking more sort of broadly about the course, I just want to reinforce that point that we've already heard, but really sort of connecting the past to the present and applying these learnings to see how we can build more inclusive and sustainable and just futures for everybody. So I really like Sarah and the example that you brought of understanding sort of how the industrial age has connected us to the current climate crisis that we're seeing. And I think as you progress in the course, you'll probably also start identifying solutions of how we can solve this together. And I think that's one of the powerful message that this course carries, which is sort of looking at our shared human history of 70,000 years from this bird's eye perspective, and then seeing these big trends, and then seeking solutions for them as well. And I think one clear idea that comes out of it is that we can only find these solutions together when we collaborate, when we cooperate, when we learn from each other. And so I think that's one of these core ideas of, we all come from one shared place in Africa, and we are part of one humanity. And I feel that the course really helps bridge the divides that we see everywhere nowadays, and to kind of find back to the shared sense of humanity and belonging, and to reinforce this idea of collaboration, of cooperation, and to finding the solutions together across all the differences we're supposedly seeing. And then I think for the live sessions, some of the things that I've heard from students who participated and from educators is that it's really helped the learners to connect and see the big picture. So really understanding sort of these global interconnectedness and to understand also some of these big drivers of global scale change. So looking at geography, looking at technology, looking at institutions, and how they are interplaying with each other to either create challenges for us or also solutions. And then how these global challenges connect to local issues as well. So I think that's been one of the primary things I've heard from the participants, that they can now sort of connect the local actions to drive global change on issues like climate or inequality or sustainability. And I think another one is that they also feel really taken seriously as change makers. So in At Your Doorstep, we really try to have young people take the forefront of these dialogues with world leaders. They come in as moderators. They are leading different polls and collective brainstormings and crowd intelligence activities with the whole audience. And so, what we've heard a lot from them is that they really appreciate this opportunity to speak, to moderate, to co-create sessions with us, and that it's something that's empowering and where they feel heard and respected. And then I think last point, it's just this connection across borders and countries, and to be part of this global learning community, to be able to engage in these kind of intercultural dialogues where we triangulate perspectives, where we have this opportunity to learn and foster this sense of a global community.
It is so true, Katya. Sense of a global community and so many different challenges that we all are facing together, and similar challenges, but yet a little different based on our context. But it makes us come together in terms of finding solutions together and having these dialogues together. So very well said. Thank you so much for bringing that point up. I also wanted to turn to Ms. Aladina Velasco Tapoli. She's a principal in New York City School, and I just wanted to give her the floor to see her reflections on the course. I think you're muted, Aladina.
Do you hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, such an honor. Oh, hold on, there's a backup. Okay. Nothing. Okay, you hear me now? Yes? Do you hear me?
There is a slight echo, so we can't hear you very well.
Hold on, let me see if I can fix this. Okay. Still an echo?
Yes.
Let's see if I can move this. How is it now?
Okay, I think better.
Okay. It's still here an echo. Let me see if I can. Still hear an echo here. I don't know why. There's two microphones that are on. Yeah. I shut one off.
Meanwhile, maybe I can share one of our students who was not able to be here, but has
Okay.
for recording.
See if it works.
Aladina,
Do you
should
hear me now? No echo? No, there's still an echo.
there is, yeah.
No, I shut it off over there. And then let me just shut it off over here. Okay, is it turned on there?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Still
I
hearing
think it's
from
better.
there. It's still on? No
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay. Can you see me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I think we got this ready to go. So such an honor to be here tonight or today. It really is in the afternoon in New York. Let me tell you a little bit about the School of Heroes. It's a very special place. 23 years ago, I'm the founding principal. And so when we opened up this building, 9/11 took place. And the community decided to name the School of Heroes, because the hazmat down the road, they lost all of their men. And so to honor them, because they were the first responders, we're just by the Midtown Tunnel. So they were the first responders. And the whole community is very patriotic and a community that gives back and serves. And so they decided to honor the names of those who have fallen. And so we've been trying to keep that namesake going. So what can we do as an educational institution in order to promote the heroism and to develop the future global citizens of tomorrow? So in the beginning, it was really somber, to be called the School of Heroes because of the sadness of those who lost. And as time progressed, we started to say, we are not going to forget. We will always remember, but we will now take charge and become the future global citizens and be those heroes that will make an impact in sustainability. So we decided to develop a curriculum in our school. We started with a simple brochure, and this is really geared towards teachers, using this as a teaching tool throughout the year. And we divided it up from pre-K through 6th grade. We have 8 grades up until the junior high grade. And I'm just going to show you the first page as an example. Basically, each page is dedicated to each grade. So pre-K, they're the peace seekers. Kindergarten, they're the peace messengers. All the way up to 6th grade, that they become the peace carriers. They carry peace on their back. Once that establishment of the importance of what cohort you were in. So if I was in the peace seekers, next year I'll be a peace messenger. The following year I'll be a peace enforcer. The next I'll be a peace builder. And so through the years, the children would be learning the importance of each. Well, if I'm a peace seeker, I seek peace out. If I'm a peace messenger, I give messages of peace. And so we kind of scaffolded along the way. The following year, we took these examples of what we were going to be in that global citizenship mode, and we started to add academics to it. And we said, we're going to now add the science and STEM and engineering. How can we adapt all of that? Well, peace seekers, again, divided up in grades, and how simple lessons can be embedded in the STEM and the engineering in the science lab, so that the teachers didn't feel overwhelmed. It was part of their curriculum, and we would infuse a lot of these concepts of peace and globalization. And after a while, the teachers started and the children started to feel a sense of respect. And so each of the pages, and all of this is developed with us as teams, and so that there's ownership of it. The following year, so remember, this is 1 year, 2 year. This year, we went even further. We started to think about how the importance of what the United Nations is doing. So we kind of took the 17 components here and we divided them up. And each of the wheel of the United Nations, what in our school are we doing as examples of the United Nations? So for example, the hydroponic farm, well, that's where hunger, I am addressing the hunger issue. And we kind of like connected everything that we're doing in our school to the components of the United Nations. I took the entire staff to the United Nations on a trip. I wanted to understand what the United Nations represents and to actually be there. Most of my staff has entered the United Nations, and to learn and to see the importance of the rooms and what takes place. They came back then and they were able to then express their experience to the children. And we had then a United Nations ambassador come to the school and speak to us. So always those connections. So we wanted to take this idea and started to infuse it in the school in a different way. So the book is really designed now. This is, remember, we've been evolving in this. The first part, we took all of these components and what are we doing in our school and what can we do? So we took a QR code specifically on each one, planting, and all different types of ways that you can plant in your classroom. So the teachers use this as a workbook and they can actually have it at their fingertips and they don't feel overwhelmed. Oh, how am I going to infuse this with all the other subject areas that I have to do? And the other half, we divided it with nutrition because once we farm, well, what do we get? We get the food and how apples and tomatoes, and each month we would celebrate a food. And again, there's a QR code helping them get some simple examples that they can infuse in their classrooms of how this food helps nourish our bodies. And so we looked then at the coursework and we said, let's see, how can we incorporate it into Jeffrey Sachs' book? And so we took one example of the ages of globalization, and we looked at the eras and the time factor, and how interesting. We know, but this is through time, so we're going to use a clock. And let's look at our time. When you take, for example, in the very beginning, 23 years ago, we started planting in our gardens, just simple planting in soil through time. And then when we go down the clock, we start looking at, well, how am I going to start giving water to the plants in the gardens? And we had a sprinkler system that we put in place. First, we had the old-fashioned sprinkler, and then as years passed, we put the irrigation, we started to put the sprinkler system. Then we got to be a little bit more sophisticated, and during the equestrian time, the classical time, we started doing this underground irrigation system. And we just went around the clock until we're at this point in today's day and age where we actually used computer in the digital age. We use computers to design our own kindergarten outside in our yard for the community to use. So we really thought that this specific book really lent itself also to ourselves, making these connections and alignments. And so I'm so excited to delve in deeper and to see how we can align even more with this great work.
That is so amazing, Ms. Olastro Terpoli. I think you've given us some more ideas on how to do. Katya, Nahin, and I, we were thinking about tagging and we were thinking about giving examples. I think you can be our teacher here and you can tell us how to do this. I think this is
It's
fabulous
a
to hear.
team, it works together.
Fantastic example, and maybe we can have a follow-up discussion with you later on this and
Absolutely.
some ideas.
I'd be honored.
Fantastic. So now maybe over to Anne Dolan, who is joining us from Ireland, and just maybe your background and seeing you just heard Ms. Olastro Terpoli discuss ages of globalization and integrate it into the classroom, but just getting, since you are teacher, you have developed so many curriculums on SDGs and also doing a lot of teacher training across the country, maybe some of your ideas taking a much more macro perspective on the future of ages of globalization, as well as all the gaps that you see around you, which needs to be filled.
Okay, thank you very much. That was a wonderful presentation from a classroom-based approach. It was very, very inspiring. And I suppose we need to hear more of those stories from classrooms because they're absolutely fantastic. It just shows us what can be achieved in the classroom. And I was taken with Sarah's presentation as well, where she said she was making the links. My only regret with this wonderful course is that it wasn't out for me years ago. I feel I've spent my whole life trying to put the pieces of this jigsaw together. I have completed courses in development economics and the philosophy of development, and yet here it is all together in one beautiful course. So that's my personal regret that it wasn't around for me years ago. But putting that aside, this is a wonderful, wonderful course. Now in Ireland, there's, I suppose, there's a big promotion of education for sustainable development in our curriculum. It's beginning to be promoted more at the primary elementary school level because we have a new curriculum coming out. It's just being finalized at the moment. And then in terms of high school, our high school students from 16 to 18, there is a new state subject called climate action and sustainable development. Now, the curriculum has just been finalized for that. We're just beginning the rollout. So 46 schools have been chosen. The teachers are being trained at the moment, and they will start teaching in September 25. So I'm hoping to meet these teachers and to show them the ages of globalization, because at the moment they are a little bit worried because they don't have enough material and they don't know how to put this program together. So this is a fantastic resource for Irish teachers. And with this new, now it won't be a mandatory subject. It'll be a subject that students can choose. But if they choose to do it, they will do it as a state exam subject. So, it's a high stakes exam. And 40% of the exam will go on an action project. So this is this is a new development in the Irish curriculum. 40% will go on a student action project. So I think that whole idea of the capstone project fits in beautifully here. And I suppose what I really take, what inspires me this evening is to see all of these amazing women sitting around this virtual table. And this is a wonderful example of globalization. This wouldn't have been able to happen years ago without the technology. So because of the technology, we are able to reach out and talk to each other all around the world, which is absolutely incredible. So I was in New York. I call myself an accidental tourist. By accident, I was in New York last September. By accident, I was introduced to Radhika. By accident, I was introduced to the ages of globalization. Other than that, I wouldn't have heard of it. If I saw it on a link, I might have clicked on it and moved on. But because I was in New York, because I met Radhika, because I saw the presentation from Jeffrey Sachs, then I became interested. Then I looked through the program. But that's just me. What about all the other people who've never heard of the ages of globalization? What about the people who've heard of it and they just click and they move on? So I think there's a big marketing issue here. I think that the ages of globalization is absolutely wonderful, but how do we get buy-in from teachers? How do we get them to spend the time to look through the program? Because the program is absolutely fantastic. But we are competing with social media and with all the other programs that are out there. And there's a little bit of resource fatigue that's out there as well. And I say to my students all the time, why didn't you use this resource? And they say, well, you never gave it to us. Yes, I did. It was on the link, but they didn't press the link. How do we get people to press the link? So what I will be doing, I will be trying to promote this course with my students, with teachers who are teaching this new Leaving Cert subject. I'm going to Germany in June as part of a European Education for Sustainable Development seminar. I'll be promoting it in that kind of context. And then there's a big climate education, an international climate education seminar happening in Sicily in July. And again, I'll be sharing the ages of globalization. So I think we need to be strategic in terms of how we promote the program. We need to be very clever in terms of marketing, because it's a wonderful, wonderful program, but we need to get the message out there and we need to get the teachers teaching this program.
Thank you so much, Anne, and can't agree with you more that it is just, we are relying so much on luck, and unfortunately the climate is not relying on luck. It is on its course. And there are a lot of climatic changes that are happening. And how do we really connect the dots here and learn from each other's resources, use different platforms, maybe, have some sort of a cohesive, sharing of resources through ages of globalization, something to think about as we go forward, with our work, and also maybe creating different communities. Teachers from Ireland can be one community, maybe teachers from New York City can be one community, and we have all these great examples that Ms. Velastro Trapoli also suggested. Learning from all of these will fast track our work and will also help us to avoid a lot of, if we are stuck somewhere, it will help us to understand how to, move forward and bring and help each other with all the resources that are there. I think that's really amazing. Thank you, Anne, for bringing this perspective on connections and on getting the teachers ready and supported. I think is going to be wonderful. But now let's hear from Vida. Vida Sakbai is going to give us a different perspective. Ages of Globalization is also a lot about art. Professor Sachs goes to all these UNESCO heritage sites and talks about arts and artifacts that he's able to see with connections to different eras. So Vida, you have been working on phenomenal experience with art, and you've been doing a lot of exhibitions. You've been also informing a lot of youth movements with art and climate change. So I don't know if you have specific insights on AOG, or maybe if you can just explain your background and what you see around yourself and how do you bring art and climate together will be wonderful.
Sure. My name is Vida Sabagi, and first of all, I'm very profoundly humbled to be among like very impressionable speeches. I'm jotting down, I'm embedding in my mind all these different ideas and methodologies. So I'm very, very excited to be part of it. So I'm the founder and director of a cultural institution called COPE NYC. And through that, we run artists in residencies, traveling exhibitions, and the emphasis is on sustainability. Because as many of you said, it's about accessibility. And so I feel like many times we may have the assumption that an art student can go to some place and purchase all these goods, but not necessarily. So my vision is to help us to know that we can cross-pollinate different society traditions through sustainable practices. And I feel like even from UNESCO to a classroom, the way to do this is to be sensitive to the local geography. And I would love to provide some examples about this. So recently, a Pratt student, she did a introduction of her research at Mohenjo-Daro and what she did in Pakistan. It's a UNESCO site, and she wanted to, instead of prior ages, instead of extracting from different geographies, she wanted to integrate the local community. So she sat with them and listened to them, and she recorded the sounds of the birds. She recorded the time of when she was walking in this UNESCO and around the fields, and she incorporated the technology as well by having a drone. So there was different incorporations of local recipes, of the sounds of the nature, that a certain bird that would be in Pakistan, it wouldn't be in New York. So here now we can have this preservation of culture in New York. And then also another way is preservation is the sustainable practices of the way they make brick and the way they use salt to create a certain type of preservation and building architect there. That's a knowledge that we can use when we're doing architect, and we want to do more sustainable practices as well. Another thing that I think is very important is the sensitivity to hyper local cultures, because I do this traveling exhibition called Recycling, and it was at Columbia University as well. And when I went to Taiwan and they asked me to do an iteration of it, I wanted to be sensitive to the culture there. So I invited many international artists that practice sustainable practice, such as reusing newspapers or plastics. And I researched like what is important in Taiwan, like the agriculture, the use of pigs is very popular. So I asked an artist, can you create a family of pigs using newspapers? Then I asked, found discarded newspapers. How many times do we see newspapers, above like garbage bins coming out, flying around the city streets? So was it very important to kind of cross-pollinate this idea of like Taiwanese culture. They use newspapers. How can they use newspapers? So we had then an integrated workshop looking at these pigs, a sculpture of families, and then using newspaper right in front of that to integrate this connectivity using Taiwanese newspaper, and creating sculptures and collages. Another thing is that I said, how can I introduced a natural landscape such as the Blue Cave in Croatia to Taiwan and celebrate Taiwanese culture? They have these generational symbolic things like the lotus flower or the strawberry generation. So then we created this creative reuse using donated fabrics to create the blue cave of fabrics that were blue. We painted the room blue, and then we had like these gobo lights. There comes the technology. When you walk and the kids walk, then all of a sudden these lotus flowers are, activate. So now they're learning about Croatian culture, and they're learning about sustainability, and also we're also kind of, bringing homage to their culture as well. So I think cross-pollination is very important, and I think accessibility is sitting down with the local people, seeing what's important to them, and not making assumptions, and not like bring incorporate different cultures, but also it's very important to incorporate the culture that you are trying to present something to. I think that's very important. And then the other thing is that I was supposed to create a reception desk for the museum where I was curating the iteration at recycling. And I wanted to be mindful of the measurements Taiwanese use, because the measurements that are used in Taiwan are not necessarily used where I am. So the seating, the height, the width, all these things I wanted to be sensitive to and mindful that, there's not one fits all size. Universally, we can be very sensitive by incorporating different cultures and acknowledging it. And they were very happy that I was mindful not only of incorporating their, heritage, the animals that they appreciate, the symbolic generations, but also even the measurements of furniture. So I feel this is something that I think being mindful of using technology, and also things that are not always technology based. And something that, um, you know, I'm sorry, your name Dolan, Miss.
And
Yeah, something that I agree with her is how can we make things more accessible? So I feel like, because I feel like if we go someplace in a remote place, there's not technology. So I feel like the art can be of platform to bridge people because it's something tangible, it's something accessible that we can see, and we could have the language like captions, we can have in, let's say, the language that we're in, and then different international languages, we can be mindful of that. And then lastly, I hope I'm not speaking too much, but I'm just excited to be part of this panel. Another thing is, for me, accessibility is also about tailoring for different people of different needs. And so I work with this Korean artist, his name is Yuma An, and he founded this traveling exhibition called Become a Butterfly. And it's to empower across the world people, different people on the autism spectrum. And so when I went to Taiwan, I invited him because part of his this work has like butterflies, and since Taiwanese has this significance with butterflies, and we invited classrooms of children on the autism spectrum to create and design the butterflies. And then we had other butterflies that were already done internationally, and we created a big mural. And then somebody was talking about a fragmented, like the digital world, that we're so disconnected. So we created a big, beautiful butterfly mural of thousands of butterflies. And then what do people like to do? Selfies. So we were able to connect that, that social media aspect as well, instead of not embracing it. So that's it.
wonderful. Thank you, Vida, for making us remember the power of art and how it can attract people and change people's minds, to see again butterflies so relaxing, and then having to think about butterflies and the connection with nature. I think it's amazing thought to have, and it can go a long way in terms of climate education, and that's also with our hope with Ages of Globalization. So happy to continue this discussion forward, Vida, on how we can link Ages of Globalization with art. We have done some bit of work with art historian Rachel Weiss, and she gives us a sense of, going to museums, 3D virtual visits to museums, connects it to different ages, but would also see, again, there's so many different aspects to how Ages of Globalization can be connected to art, and hopefully we can, draw on that, your inspiration today, to be able to, connect to artwork much more strongly. Having said that, I just wanted to share one of our students who has not been able to join today because of her classes. Let's see if I can share her video quickly and get her insights as well. I hope you can all hear.
Hello, everyone. My name is Shreya. I'm a sophomore at Milford High School and a student of the Ages of Globalization course. So today, I'd like to discuss my perspective of this course. The first question I'd like to answer is, why this course? So what makes the Ages of Globalization course so relevant for today's education is the fact that it addresses sustainable development, which is increasingly important as climate change is continuously exacerbated. But what makes this course unique from other sustainable development courses, and likewise history and economics courses, is the fact that it addresses sustainable development from the lens of history and economics. This is incredibly important because the effect that shared history and economics has on the current day policies that can be implemented is enormous. And hence, I think that the Ages of Globalization course is incredibly important in order to do so, in order to gain a holistic understanding of the entire situation. Okay. So for me, the most engaging aspects of this course was the content itself, as it forced me to look at history from the view of present day, which is interesting because generally in history courses, we think kind of like, oh, history is the past, there's nothing really we can do with that information. But now we're utilizing that information and that knowledge that the course has given us and applying it to present day scenarios, which I think is incredibly interesting to do. Another aspect that I found really interesting was the data activities. So I've used ArcGIS before, but I think that this course does a spectacular job of integrating the software into the course because it helped me to better visualize and conceptualize the content that was being described during the course, such as in class 1, where they described the global population levels where it was the highest. And I think that it was just incredibly helpful and helped me understand more of what was going on inside the actual course. Another aspect of the course that I really enjoyed was the capstone project. So, like I mentioned earlier, I think that it's really cool to be able to use shared history and that knowledge to be able to create current day politics because it's so important. And I think in general, getting this understanding and then utilizing it to have a community-based impact is incredibly cool because it's something that I could actually do. And it's about a topic that I'm interested in. And it really forces me to truly understand, conceptualize, process all the information that's being given in the courses. And it helps me do a better job of having a true community impact because I have such a big understanding of the actual content that I'm treating. And however, there is one thing that I think the course could have worked on, and that was its utilization. At the end of every 5 or so sessions, which is one class, they have one quiz, which is approximately 8 questions. I think that this quiz does a really good job of recapping the broad conceptual ideas of the entire class. However, I think it also misses out on some of the finer points that are being discussed in every session. So I think it'd be useful to have one smaller quiz between every section in order to capture these small minutiae, because although the big concept is incredibly important, so are the small details as well. But overall, I really enjoyed taking this course, and I haven't gotten a chance to finish it yet, but I'm working towards that right now. And I can't wait to be through the whole course. Thank you so much.
And that was Shreya Iyer in New Jersey, and unfortunately, she has her UN model program going on, so she was not able to attend. And also, Saira is here to also explain the student's perspective, which is always wonderful to have. We have around 6 minutes or so. If there are any participants who would like to ask any questions to any of the panelists, I know Thor is here. Thor, maybe you can also give your perspective on preparing materials for teachers, and you are a teacher yourself, so any ideas on how this course will be useful for your work in Belgium?
Yeah, the course of Age of Globalization is very interesting to work with because it works transdisciplinary. So for us in Flanders, we have key competencies that the pupils need to have by the end of their school career, so to speak. And the age of globalization have a lot of doors you can open to reach those competencies. So I am currently also conducting research on which competencies can be useful and how I can create a didactical materials to teach the children that in the classroom. So
Thank you so much, Thor, and hoping to get a lot of research our way, and it will really help to for us to learn from your research work, share it with other teachers. Maybe they will be also looking at similar competencies and ways of mapping the curriculum, AUG curriculum with the competencies. So really welcome your research, and maybe it will be another panel or seminar that we will have later on down the lane where you can share your project. Few more minutes left. Any questions, any reflections now that we've heard everyone? Yes, Atika, please go ahead.
Like the Ages of Globalization session, like it's amazing. I really like the course, and as I told earlier, I learned many things from it about our history, ancient, and I really loved it. I just want to ask a question. Like in Pakistan, there are not much people who are aware about sustainable development goals, including my school. So how could I aware them about the sustainable development goals as a student?
Thank you, Atika. You are at the right panel, and if you see the chat, what I'll do is I'll add all the things that are here in the as resources, and has especially put in so many information about teaching of global goals and her book. Maybe I'll quickly ask her to do a quick overview of all the resources. That will be really helpful. Atika, I would suggest to go over this and probably not wait for a teacher. You can start your own club and learn, having all these students there, learn from each other, and ask questions to your teachers. That will be really helpful. As well as, maybe having some sort of a group where you can have your I'm sure teachers are very busy, but I'm sure they'll be able to give you some time to address your question if you show some resources that you are having difficulty with. But I'll ask Anne, and then maybe Miss Valastro Trepoli is the best person here who can share how students can learn from the SDGs. And
okay, I mean, that's a brilliant comment. I mean, considering that the Sustainable Development Goals have been around since 2015, it's why are people still not aware of them? Why are teachers not teaching about them? Why are schools not teaching about them? So the first thing I would say is make sure there's that the logos are on display in your school or in your classroom. And even if you don't have a poster, the students can actually make a beautiful drawing of the different logos and put them up on the wall. And then if you look at the themes of the SDGs, we have food, we have gender, we have equality, we have community. These are generic themes that are applicable. So sometimes teachers are actually teaching the SDGs without naming it, without knowing it, or without making specific links. So I think as students, you can say, you know, if we're teaching about poverty, as students, we can say, well, that's very much connected to SDG 1, no poverty. Or if we're talking about hunger, the students can say, well, that's very much covered in SDG 2. So just to make the links, because in a way, schools are talking about these issues because they are generic fundamental parts of our curriculum. But we need to make the links to the SDGs. We need to see that there's a program in place supported by the United Nations to, you know, to make the world a better place. So I think if it comes from the students, from the teachers, from the school, from the communities, and this is the point that was made earlier at the beginning of this discussion, that the whole thing about the ages of globalization is the multidisciplinary nature of it. And I think the multi-stakeholder approach is very important. It's not just up to one person. We all have to work collectively. And just my final point is to go back to the artist who spoke, Vida, I think, and she was talking about Taiwan and the butterflies. I think even art is a wonderful way into exploring the SDGs. And for example, this group could come back in a couple of months' time and have a discussion about art from all of our own perspectives and how art supports the SDGs.
Thank you so much, Anne. And maybe last comment from Ms. Velasco-Trepoli on Atika's question.
You know, I think that in order for it to go to all different schools, it needs to be internalized within the environment. It has to be a way of life. You can't just say these are the components and that's it. And that's why when I had shared with you the connections, it's like this is what we need to do. And this is the way we're going to align it. And look, oh my goodness, we at first when I saw the United, I'm going to go back for a quick second. When I saw the United Nations, all these areas, 17, I didn't think that we were going to actually adhere to all 17. I said, let's see which ones. And then as we were going along, we were like, oh my goodness, in some way, shape, or form, we are adhering to each of the United Nations components. So then when we were introduced the books of the globalization, again, I said, how from the beginning of time to today's time, how can we make those connections and associations? And by simply just planting 23 years ago in the backyard of the school, starting that's the beginning, just like from the beginning of time, and how the clock has gone, time has gone. Again, these associations, the children, the staff, the community should be able to embrace and understand. Like the next issue right now, what I'm going to do is, you can see, this is my next year's goals. I'm already starting my next year's goals. And my 5 goals is that we're going to serve. How can we serve the community? We've been able to serve ourselves and being self-sustaining, but now we're going to have to serve others. And what can we do in the outskirts of our community make a difference? And we're going to do that with different subject areas. Because again, it's a beautiful concept for us to say we want world peace and globalization, but we're an educational institution. How can we connect that academically? And so academically, we did this year through science, with making science projects, the scientific method, what we are required to do, the standards that we're required to teach. But how can we connect it to solving the problems of mass bequeaths? This is where we live. How can I take this science project and apply it to what we can do to serve our community? Not just do a science project on volcanoes, it's a good thing, you're learning. But what can I do? In Maspeth, we have a water problem, there's flooding. What science experiment with the scientific method that we're required to teach can we do to help our community? And by doing that, that shows peace, that shows globalization. And understanding that this simple science project is my way of giving a contribution to the world. And then we're going to do that with math. Well, what can I do in math in order to make a difference globally? algebraic thinking is a component. We need to know how we can algebraically think and process and solve a problem. Well, if we can do that, we can use that algebraic thinking with the science melded together. So now science and math, we're solving problems in a mathematical way, in a scientific way, and in that way, we are globally solving world problems. And now sustainability. Take something like that where what are we doing as an institution to self-sustain? And again, using the CER, claim, evidence, and reasoning. What's my claim? What is the evidence to support my claim? What's the reasoning behind it? And if we do that specifically for science, specifically for math, specifically for sustainability, well, now we're on our way. We have that common thread. It's not all mixed up and I have to learn this. No, we all have a claim in each of these areas. We all have evidence and we all have reasoning. And so this is my next year's goal, to introduce the importance of doing that within the classroom.
Wow, thank you so much. And it's so inspirational to see your goals and such a brilliant framework to have, Ms. Blast.
Oh, it
Amazing.
takes time. Like I said, I'm a founding principal. This is a lot of work. You can't expect it to be done immediately. The scaffolding and the foundation takes time. We started 20 years learning about the importance of taking care of our bodies, our mind. What we need to. Why do we need to exercise? Why do we need to study? Why do we need the importance of brain power? After we've established that, remember, we have 8 years of instruction foundation from the age of 5 to 12, 13. So in 8 years, we wanted the children to first learn the importance of taking care of our bodies. And as each year they're growing and learning, well, now I'm able to take care of others and serve others. And how am I going to do that? And what better way than to my own community, so that I can actually, when I walk the streets, I know I did that where I live or my neighbor lives. And so that concept has to be done across all schools, all school districts, so that people can understand, okay, this is a way of life. It's not just a curriculum. Curriculum is important, but if we don't live it and become a routine, then it's in isolation and it doesn't become a way that we need to talk with people, understand people, respect people, and help people in a global manner.
Thank you. And I think with that inspirational note, we have a lot to think about with Ages of Globalization over the year. Katya and Hain and my work is definitely cut out to see how we can incorporate all of these ideas in, take hands resources, see how Sarah's as well as Shreya's points are taken, and then also to work with Vida on the art. Amazing to meet everyone here, and thank you for your collaboration as always, and we will continue to be in touch with you for sure. Please feel free to ask us any questions if you have any, and let's just continue this journey of making a difference. And if AOG can be a part of your journey, we will be ever grateful. Thank you so much and have a great weekend.
Thank you all for your professionalism. Such an honor. We learn so much from each other. It's so important.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Be well.
Thank you.